I really want to see fewer and fewer wholesalers that are just operating in a manner that is not in the interest of the seller, and these deals are not closing. Again, all of this regulation coming out on wholesaling is to protect the consumer. And the reason they're protecting the consumer is because there's so many people that are operating in a fashion that's not in the best interest of the seller. Welcome to the Ryan Rice Show, where we talk about what we learned yesterday that we can apply today so that we can be better tomorrow. I hope you enjoy and subscribe. I want to share 3 things that I do with every single wholesale deal that helps me get that deal to the finish line. And the reason why I'm making this is because the amount of wholesale deals that I see come across my plate, and it makes me cringe the way the wholesaler is trying to sell it. And then they end up not selling it and nobody's happy. Their reputation gets broken because all of the buyers they send it to think that they're a bad wholesaler. They don't know how to run their numbers. And the seller's not happy because nobody ends up actually closing on the deal. And honestly, I think this is why there's more and more regulation coming out on wholesaling, is because people just aren't doing things in a manner that's going to get the deal to the finish line. Who am I? My name is Ryan Rice. I am a full-time real estate investor. I wholesale, flip, keep rentals, and I share all of this stuff with you with the hopes that it makes you more money in your real estate business and helps us serve the real estate industry better. So the first thing I do is I execute all of the due diligence for my buyer. And here is what I mean. When I put something under contract, if I know I'm going to assign it, I will send someone out to the house, typically a licensed home inspector, and they're going to give me an abbreviated home inspection so that I have an understanding of the age of the roof, the age of the furnace, the HVAC system, what's going on with the plumbing, is the electrical okay? They go in the crawl space or look at the basement, check on if there are any foundation issues, all of the mechanicals of the house, right? Those are the items that if someone closes on that deal and they go wrong, it's going to make the deal go very south. And for people who are flipping consistently and doing lots of deals, they do all of that due diligence themselves before they're going to close on that deal. And what I have found is if I can do all of that due diligence up front, it's going to very much minimize the amount of time that process takes for the buyer to make a decision on the house, which in turn is going to end up better serving my seller. And so one big reason I do this is because it's actually in more service of my seller for me to do this due diligence up front. Because think about what's going to happen if I don't do the due diligence. A couple weeks go by where I'm sending it out to my buyers list, they're walking through, and then I get feedback from my buyers that there's something that I wasn't aware of. And then I have to have a conversation with that seller 2, maybe 3 weeks after I have the deal in contract. That just doesn't make me look good. It doesn't make the seller feel good because 3 weeks have gone by and now there has to be some sort of renegotiation. So by me doing this due diligence up front, is it gets way ahead of that, and it helps make sure that there's not going to have to be an uncomfortable conversation after a long period of time for that seller. And I'll actually give a recent example from this past week where I had to back out of a deal because I did due diligence, but because I did this due diligence, I backed out of it quickly. And I had a great conversation with the seller. So I put this piece of land in contract, and it was right across from another piece of land that just finished a new build. The comp was there. It was perfect. It was the right size. I just had to send my soil guy out to make sure that if I'm going to market this to a builder, I could say, hey, here is the soil report. Here is the type of septic system that needs to be on this lot because this lot wasn't serviced by public water or public sewer. And I knew that was going to be a sticking point. If a builder was going to come in and build a house on this lot, they needed to know if the land was actually buildable. So I put it under contract and I sent my soil guy out there. And unfortunately, it wasn't buildable. He said, hey, not only will you need a $40,000 septic system for this piece of land, but I usually do septic designs. I can't even design this lot because there's some very poor drainage going on, and all of the surrounding lots around it drain to this one lot. So unfortunately, if we want to do any further due diligence, we're going to have to bring an engineer into this lot, spend another $4,000 to $6,000, have him do a design and see if it can actually work. We chose not to do that because it seemed like, based on what the soil guy told me, there was a 90%, 95% probability that the engineer, we were going to pay him to go out and he wouldn't be able to do a design. And I was able to do that over the course of a week or two, right? Imagine if I didn't do that and I started marketing it and I brought in these builders. Not only would I not be knowing what's going on, I would be at the mercy of the builders actually sending their soil guy out. I wouldn't have been in control over the timing. I wouldn't have had a conversation with the soil guy. I was able to have a great conversation with the soil guy that I was then able to translate all of the info that I got back to the seller so that they felt good about having information for land that they own that could help serve them in the future. Hey guys, real quick. If you're tired of seeing poorly executed wholesale deals come across your desk, can you share this episode, share it on your Instagram, tag me, write wholesale better, and let's share this with as many people who are wholesaling as possible so that we can make this industry better. Thanks, and let's get back to the show. Right? And so then when I talked to the seller, it was a much easier conversation because I had control over the soil guy. I could take the information, I could send him the report, and it was just a much better conversation. And to be at the mercy of a builder who would have done all of that themselves, and maybe it would have taken twice as long, it would have just been a really poor experience for that seller. So doing this due diligence ahead of time is actually serving your customer, because that seller, you're going to be able to communicate any issues more quickly. And the second thing that it does is it's going to make it easier to sell your deals, right? If you're doing all of this due diligence ahead of time and you're doing the diligence that buyers are going to want to do anyway, and you can just give them that information, think about how much easier that's going to make them to be able to make a decision. It's just going to speed up that whole process. And that's a good segue into the second thing that I do. After I do this due diligence, I serve the deal up to my buyers on a silver platter. And what I mean by that is I send them a breakdown of, hey, this is the age of the roof. Here's the age of the furnace. This is the last time the heat pump was replaced. This is the condition of the plumbing. Here's a whole bunch of videos. Here's an abbreviated license inspector report. Here are pictures of the crawl space, the foundation. Here's a video of the property. Anything and everything that a buyer may want to know in order to buy a house, I give it to them. And the reason why I do that, and yes, that puts a little bit of effort and spend on the front end, but the amount of times that I'm able to send that information out to my buyers and they can make a very quick decision because I give them all of the information they need to make a decision, that makes everything better for everybody. And it speeds up the process, which is better for the seller. It reduces the amount of time that there is uncertainty in the deal because I know that I can find a buyer very quickly. And if I have all of that information and I'm serving it up to my buyers on a silver platter and I still can't find a buyer, then I know the market is giving me very quick feedback. And if I didn't serve all of that information up because I didn't know it, then I would have to wait for 3, 4, 5, 6 buyers to give me that feedback, then put all of the feedback together, then go back to my seller and say, hey, something isn't working, right? And so I will just consistently go back to the fact that doing these things is going to actually serve your seller better, which is going to give you a better reputation within the real estate industry, and it's going to give you a better reputation with your buyers out there because you're giving them all of the information that they might need. The third thing I do, and I do this after I get a deal in contract, is I have a checklist of all of the steps that need to be executed between the time a deal gets in contract all the way to the time that we close. And I keep it on Google Sheets and I call it my TC dashboard, transaction coordinator dashboard. and it literally houses everything on there. And so if I have 5 deals going at once, I can see on one screen where every single deal is, and it helps me understand, are all of these tasks being executed? And so this is stuff like, when is my inspection period over? When is title due back? If title's not due back by X date, then we need to follow up with the title company to see where title is. Are there any title issues? What are the title issues? And when do we need to get and resolve those title issues by? Does the seller want to close early? What date does the seller want to close early? Where and when is the seller signing? Or how are they getting their money? When are we closing, and when is the title company dispersing? All those little things are on a one snap screen that our team can take a look at, and it just helps us execute very quickly. And honestly, what it helps do in terms of in the perception in the eyes of our customer is it helps us communicate frequently, and we always know what's going on, and we're in constant communication with our seller because we have this easy checklist. And so if you feel that would be helpful and you've done a deal, you go back and look at that deal, make a list of all of the little things that you had to do, whether it's follow up on title, communicate to the seller what's on title, facilitate their closing. How are they signing? Are they signing with a mobile notary? Are they signing in the office? How do they want their money? Communicating expectations as to when they get the money, etc. Doing all of that stuff is actually, it's in greater service to your clients. It's going to help make sure that your clients are happy, that you're staying on top of all of the necessary things that you need to do in order to get that deal closed. And it's going to help minimize your fallout rate. So those are the 3 things that I do that I think help make sure that I get these deals closed. And I hope that's helpful to you. Hope it can help you close more deals. And if you do feel this is helpful, I really want to see fewer and fewer wholesalers that are just operating in a manner that is not in the interest of the seller, and these deals are not closing. Again, all of this regulation coming out on wholesaling is to protect the consumer. And the reason they're protecting the consumer is because there's so many people that are operating in a fashion that's not in the best interest of the seller. And so please share this so it gets out to everyone. Hopefully everyone can start operating their wholesale business in a way that's truly in service to the seller, and we can start serving them better as an industry as a whole. Thank you, guys.